So we are just going live on YouTube. Hello, anybody who's on YouTube, and hi to everybody who's on Zoom. Yeah, just lovely to see you. Um, we're not going late tonight because I have an appointment, and so we'll finish at mm, three, at sort of 6:40 or something. Um, I'm just turning my phone on silent, so please do similarly. Just so we don't get interrupted too much. I don't know if you saw my nice little graphic introducing tonight. It's called "Everything Everywhere All at Once," and it's a homage to the Oscars last night. And yes, you've got sound, Sally. We can hear you. But I'm putting you on mute. But can you hear me? Yeah, but Sally can't by the looks of things. Excuse me, I'll just type to her. Here we are. We'll see if she can respond to that. So the reason it is called Everything Everywhere All at Once is because I listened to a teacher this week who was talking about honesty and how mindfulness is an invitation to be radically honest. And I was kind of thinking about that and thinking about how to make sense of being dishonest. Because none of us like to think we are dishonest, and I don't think I'm particularly dishonest. But here's kind of how I got there, and here's what I want to say about it. So one of the one of the peculiar things that happens to me every now and again, particularly if I decide that I'm going to sit in meditation without guidance, just with a bong or something to keep time for me. Sometimes I will be really absorbed in the meditation, and within a nanosecond, I find myself on my feet fussing with something, opening the window, um, writing something on my to-do list, um, uh, fussing over the cat, um, going to the loo, whatever. And I honestly can't recall how I got from my cushion to 2 seconds later doing this fussy little whatever it is, distraction. So when I heard this teacher talking about being radically honest, I was thinking about how I could apply this idea of honesty to those moments where I get overtaken by the urge to stop practicing. Suddenly there's a very good reason, and it grabs me to such an extent that I lose my mindfulness and I become completely mindless, and off I go, just pulled away. And although the biggest examples the biggest examples of this come from those times when I find myself on my feet. Um, so Sally's still trying to figure it out. Hold on, I'll just try and help. Excuse me. Okay. My technical wizardry might help her at this point. So that's the most obvious example, isn't it? So I'm sitting there, I'm absorbed, I'm enjoying my practice, I'm fully attentive. I can see thoughts arising, thoughts arising, thoughts arising, sensations, emotions, sensations, thoughts, etc. And then somehow I I just miss a beat, and in that moment habit takes over and I get distracted and I get up. Um, so I was thinking about this idea of a radical honesty and how I could apply that to those moments where I basically lose my mind. Those moments where I lose my mindfulness. And so the other thing I was experimenting with is this idea that when we're in practice, radical honesty encourages us to actually be more inclusive and more expansive, which is why I've called tonight Everything Everywhere All at Once, because it gives us the opportunity to say, if I'm mindful and I'm welcoming all this stuff in, then that blip that I've just described is less likely to happen. That blip is less likely to occur because I am genuinely going, oh, yes, you're here. Oh, yes, you're here. Because it seems clear to me that the reason I end up going from my cushion to standing up and getting distracted is because I have failed to see something. I've fundamentally failed to see that I am getting agitated, or I've failed to see that I'm getting bored, or I've failed to see that there's something tugging at me. Because if I'd seen it and if I'd welcomed it, it couldn't have grabbed me in this way. And I hope that that begins to sort of weave together the tapestry of what we're exploring tonight. This basic idea, or this sort of hunch that I have, it's not proven, it's not anything anybody's told me, but this hunch that I have, which is that as we open, and if we approach that openness with this radical honesty of really seeing, really experiencing, really welcoming, then we are less likely to be grabbed unconsciously or below our level of consciousness and pulled away. And as I say, my pulling away has got to the point occasionally where I literally jump up from my zafu and wander off and suddenly realize I've just wandered off. How did I get here? And so with that in mind, this evening's practice is going to work around that. And I also recall, Cami, you asked me last week, thank you very much, about this idea of what do you do when you feel overwhelmed. So we're going to look at both of these, because this idea of opening up and really including everything can actually contribute to a sense of overwhelm. So we'll make sure that we talk about that and experience that. And I wonder if Sally can hear me yet. Sally, can you give me a thumbs up? She can. She can. Excellent. I'm putting you on mute then. Thank you. Yeah. And Mary's just joining as well. So, gosh, we've got a lovely crowd on Zoom. Thank you. So, welcome anybody who's just joined, and thank you very much for logging in and persevering with sound problems. We're going to do a 25-minute practice If you can stop anything that you're doing, if you can turn off your notifications, if you can be aware that maybe you've got something that you've got to go to. I mean, like me, you might have other events or other appointments that you're going to, and it's really easy for the mind to go there. So just bring the mind here. We're going to finish in good time. We're going to make sure that you get to your next appointment with plenty of spare. So, we don't overrun. And so that allows you to completely relax here. So, in your own way, just first start with the body and make sure it's symmetrical, upright and aligned both forward and backwards and side to side. So you can just you can just circle round your spinal column briefly if you'd like to find that still point inside of you. And this is feet on the ground, bum on the seat, sitting in a posture that is upright and self-supporting. That means that the skeleton is doing the work. If you'd like to lie down, please do so. It's fine to lie down. And if you're going to lie down, I recommend you keep your eyes open, soft gaze. It's just as a way of making sure you don't zone out. So, meditation is not a zoning out. Meditation and mindfulness is a clarity, the willingness to be clear about what we're experiencing. So, allowing the body to settle and sink. Just begin by focusing on the body, and the mind will follow the body. Just feel into the body sinking and softening, sinking and softening. Perhaps you'd like to notice where the breath is most obvious or clear or sharply defined for you. So sometimes we find in the breath cycle there are bits that really strike us as clear. Move your attention to those places. The beginning of the breath, the end of the breath. Maybe it's the warmth of the breath. Maybe it's the release of the breath. Maybe it's a part of the body that the breath touches. Just put your mind wherever the breath makes most sense to you. So, this part of the practice, we just create an anchor point. The anchor point is our connection to the ground, some part of our body that is clearly imprinted or impressing into the ground, where we can easily move our attention and where we can easily acquire a sense of stability. Sometimes this is the back and base of the spine. Sometimes it's the feet. Sometimes it's the bum. Sometimes it's the knees. Just get in touch with the ground making connection to the body. And now that you've made that connection to the ground, move your attention to consciousness itself. So you have the capacity to know what your mind is doing. This is consciousness. You have some degree of agency over your mind. You can place your attention in certain ways. The invitation for this section of the practice is to open your attention fully. Open wide, open broad, open deep. And watch everything that floods in, reminding yourself that This is radical honesty. This is a sense of everything's possible, everything's welcome, nothing that comes to your mind is wrong. And as soon as you think that you've discovered everything, everywhere, all at once, remind yourself of this idea that honesty requires you to go deeper and broader and be more accepting, inviting, inviting, inviting. So it's not just a receptivity of things. It's a it's like you're watering the seed bed. You're watering the garden and saying, "Come, come, come and show yourself." What is it that's coming up that could shatter your equanimity or rock your awareness or knock you sideways? And instead of fighting it or engaging it in that way, welcome, open, acknowledge. If you get lost in this practice, just go back to the breath and go back to that anchor point. But the idea is to continue to invite yourself to be honest, honest in a way that is inviting clarity about your experience. It's not thinking about your experience, it's really acknowledging and welcoming your experience. And some of that experience will be a little bit in the past or a little bit in the future. And as long as you know that, you can adjust. It doesn't make it wrong. It doesn't make it something to be excluded. Just know that your thinking can be dragged in that way. We'll finish this practice by returning a more narrow focus to the breath and just anchoring there. And really slowly, very gently, begin to wiggle your fingers and toes. Begin to take control of your breath and your breathing. Shrug your shoulders, stretch a little bit, yawn a little bit, and come back to the group and eyes open when you're ready. And I'm going to say goodbye to anybody who's on YouTube. Thank you very much for being with me. You can always move across from YouTube to Zoom, but the lovely thing about YouTube is that you're anonymous, and some people love that, and some people love being on Zoom so that we can have a chat. So I'll say goodbye on YouTube and continue to have a chat on Zoom. See you next week.